Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. Today I'm looking at the successor to one of the most popular bang-for-buck 32-inch 4K gaming monitors, the Gigabyte M32UP. Lots of you guys bought the Gigabyte M32U for around $500 US as a solid 4K 144Hz LCD, and now Gigabyte have a new version they're slowly rolling out called the M32UP. It's not a radical change. In fact, it's very similar in terms of its specifications, but it'll be good to assess it and see how the 32-inch LCD market is going at the moment. The M32UP is a 32-inch 3840 by 2160 IPS LCD with a maximum refresh rate of 160Hz, a small increase in refresh rate compared to the M32U, which topped out at 144Hz. Like its predecessor, this is an SDR monitor with no real HDR capabilities. It is advertised as Display HDR 400, but it doesn't even have edge-lit local dimming, so the HDR experience is bad. Not a deal breaker at this price yet, because 32-inch HDR LCDs are still quite expensive, though there is increasing demand for true HDR products around and below this price point. When it comes to the design, the M32UP is very much a refresh of the M32U, which I actually never reviewed on the channel. It's the same sort of Gigabyte M series design that we've seen for a while now, featuring a simple black plastic construction and wide, flat V-shaped stand. There's nothing fancy here, no RGB LED lighting on the back, but from the front it looks pretty good with slim bezels on three sides, and I quite like how it looks on the rear as well. You're not getting premium materials here like a metal stand, but I wouldn't say the plastic build is especially cheap looking either. It's perfectly fine for this class of display. The stand is functional and supports height, tilt and swivel adjustment with a good maximum height on offer. It has moderate levels of stability. The screen coating is also a typical matte LCD finish that is very similar to other LCDs, effective at reducing mirror reflections at the cost of light amounts of grain. Port selection, pretty decent, featuring two HDMI 2.1 48 gigabits per second ports, one DisplayPort 1.4 with DSC, and a USB-C supporting DP alt mode. There's also a 3-port USB 3.2 hub, and the USB-C port can be used as an upstream port too, allowing for KVM switch functionality. However, the USB-C is limited to just 18 watts of power delivery, which won't be sufficient for charging laptops. It's good to see the HDMI ports upgraded from 24 gigabits per second on the M32U to now be full 48 gigabits per second ports. The on-screen display is controlled by a directional toggle on the rear of the screen, and it contains Gigabyte's standard interface. There's a great set of features here for gamers, including crosshairs, a refresh rate counter, shadow boosting, sniper mode, and a dashboard that hooks into Gigabyte software to provide some stats. There's also a decent range of color controls, but just be aware this is basically the same as you get on other Gigabyte monitors in case you are tossing up between two models. For response time performance, Gigabyte offer 5 different overdrive settings, and we'll start with overdrive off, which shows native panel performance with, as you might have guessed, overdrive disabled. This is probably not how you'll want to run the monitor. The picture quality mode is a small improvement to 8.5 milliseconds, but still not fast enough to support a 160Hz refresh rate. The balance mode is where the M32UP starts to perform to a reasonable standard, offering a 4.8 millisecond response time average and reasonable overshoot results, leading to cumulative deviation around 400. That's decent for this sort of LCD. Don't bother using the speed mode because it has noticeable overshoot artifacts and is pushed too far. There's also the Smart OD mode, which at 160Hz uses a similar overdrive configuration to balance, which is a good choice. What surprised me about the M32UP is this is the first Gigabyte monitor I've reviewed where the Smart OD setting is actually optimized properly for variable overdrive. Previously, the Smart OD setting on other monitors would make bizarre choices about which overdrive mode to use at various refresh rates. On the M32UP, it's much more sensible. At 144Hz and above, you get bounce level overdrive. Then for mid refresh rates, it drops to picture quality overdrive, and at 60Hz, it seems to run overdrive off completely. Now, this variable overdrive setup isn't quite as aggressive as I would have been. For example, I think performance at 60Hz could be improved using picture quality like settings instead, but overall this mode is very usable and allows for a single overdrive mode experience. There's great performance at high refresh rates, a suitable experience in the middle where overshoot doesn't go crazy, and management at 60Hz is acceptable. If you use the fixed overdrive configurations instead, like the balance or picture quality modes, you'll either have to deal with overshoot at lower refresh rates or lackluster performance at higher refresh rates, so I'd recommend Smart OD. Compared to other monitors at their maximum refresh rates, the Gigabyte M32UP is pretty well optimized, offering better performance than the LG 32Gi93U that we've recommended previously, and lower overshoot than the Gigabyte FI32U, which was one of their previous generation models. This is a good result in line with better LCDs of today. For average performance, like I said, the Smart OD setting could be more aggressive with its tuning, hence why it doesn't deliver as strong of a result as the LG 32Gi93U, for example. The 32Gi93U also delivers a single overdrive mode experience and is better tuned in the middle of the refresh rate range, though this Gigabyte monitor is still very usable with low overshoot results. Also, as we look at cumulative deviation, the M32UP is very much in the usual range we see from today's LCD gaming monitors with a result of 546. This is very similar tuning to the M27U and better than some of the older 32-inch 4K monitors like the Gigabyte FI32U and MSI MPG 321UR-QD. However, the 32Gi93U is a chart leader here among LCDs, offering 14% better average cumulative deviation, which is better, though not to a level that will be hugely noticeable while gaming. The M32UP is a good monitor for fixed refresh rate 120Hz gaming, with the balance mode providing the best experience here. At 60Hz the results are reasonable, though there are better monitors for lower refresh rate gaming. Input lag is a non-issue on this display, producing under 1 milliseconds of processing delay and similar overall results to other 4K gaming LCDs on the market today. The only way to get a significantly more responsive monitor in this class is to get something 240Hz, which are rare for LCDs at this resolution, or you could move to an OLED, which is going to be much more expensive. Power consumption is typical and in line with today's best 32-inch LCDs for efficiency, roughly matching the 32Gi93U at 200 nits. You'll be saving at least 10 watts compared to earlier 32-inch 4K LCDs, and this technology continues to be much more efficient than OLEDs for typical desktop work. Plus, you don't have to worry about burn-in. The M32UP is a wide gamut monitor like nearly all of today's gaming displays. It packs 95% DCI-P3 coverage and 93% coverage of Adobe RGB, which are decent results for an LCD. However, overall Rec 2020 coverage is just 70%, which is on the lower side compared to most others that I've tested. It certainly lacks that additional gamut you'd get from a quantum dot enhanced display, though it's not hugely different to products like the M27U or 32Gi93U. Factory color performance is strong in grayscale with near perfect gamma and white balance performance, leading to a Delta E ITP average of just 5.03. There are the usual concerns around oversaturation, as this display does not use an sRGB gamut clamp out of the box. Compared to other monitors, this is a pretty good showing. New for 2025, we'll be testing the performance of monitors when using Windows Auto Color Management feature introduced in Windows 11 24H2. This feature color manages the display at a system level by using the color data the monitor reports. On wide gamut monitors, this allows SDR sRGB content to be displayed more accurately without the use of a monitor's sRGB mode, as the color space emulation is performed by Windows instead of the monitor. It also allows you to avoid any sRGB mode restrictions like locked white balance, because the monitor remains in its standard configuration with full setting control. When enabling ACM, the M32UP retains strong grayscale accuracy, but now color performance is improved as there is OS-level sRGB emulation. As this display is generally well calibrated, we see a Delta E average below 3.0 in saturation and below 4.0 in color checker, which is great and sufficient to call this a calibrated experience. If you want to take calibration to the next level or have a source device that doesn't support color management, then the sRGB mode will be useful for SDR content. This mode is very accurate with outstanding grayscale performance and very low Delta E's in our color tests. This makes the M32UP one of the most accurate displays you can get, a fantastic result that keeps Gigabyte in the leadership position when it comes to calibration in the sRGB mode. Performing a full calibration on this monitor isn't a necessity due to its out-of-the-box performance. I'd just use the sRGB mode or auto color management in Windows, though CalMan can improve things if you want to go down that path. SDR brightness is on the low side for an LCD at just 360 nits, which is still very sufficient for most use cases. One of the main competitors to this display, the 32Gi93U, does get quite a bit brighter if that's important to you. Minimum brightness was fine at 58 nits, but not amazing. As for native contrast ratio, there's nothing special about the M32UP. It's delivering a typical IPS LCD experience with a contrast of 1069:1. Most gaming LCDs today are a little over 1,000 to 1, so this monitor fits right into that range. Overall though, this is a poor contrast ratio with weak black levels, just an inherent flaw to this technology that is easily beaten by VA LCDs and OLEDs. Viewing angles are great, very usable, which is in line with other IPS LCDs on the market today. The only display technology that's better is OLED. Then for uniformity, not too bad, though there was a slight fall off in brightness along the left and right edges. This is not noticeable while gaming. Final section of the review is the Hub Essentials checklist. Gigabyte does an okay job advertising this display. Some of the listed specifications are accurate or even conservative, like color gamut and brightness. Other aspects are misleading, such as HDR support. I mean, it does support HDR, but you don't get any real hardware support, and then response time performance as well. This isn't unusual for an LCD to be advertised this way, though I continue to be pretty disappointed when things like HDR aren't being properly advertised. This would have been better if it just wasn't advertised as supporting HDR. In the Essentials checklist, there aren't any surprises here. As a non-HDR monitor, the M32UP doesn't meet the requirements of many of the HDR criteria. However, it does offer some fairly basic backlight strobing, which in my opinion doesn't look amazing, and a great port selection with the exception of, say, USB-C power delivery. Overall, the Gigabyte M32UP is a pretty good bang for buck 32-inch 4K gaming monitor, though it doesn't do anything especially unique or different compared to other products in the same category. I guess these days with LCD panel technology where it currently is, it's hard to go above and beyond, but at the very least Gigabyte have nailed the basics. What I always like about testing Gigabyte monitors is the balance that's offered across all areas to performance. This is especially important in a 32-inch 4K monitor where I'd reasonably expect people would be interested in using it for both productivity work and gaming. The M32UP has fantastic color accuracy, a great resolution, suitable brightness and good viewing angles, making it a decent monitor for work. On top of this, you get reasonable response times with variable overdrive, a great 160Hz refresh rate, and low input lag for a really solid gaming experience. The biggest standout area to performance is probably Gigabyte's sRGB mode calibration, which is amazing. But in most other categories, the M32UP delivers fairly standard sort of performance, though I didn't see any standout flaws either, which is good. It's a nice, usable, competent monitor with strong versatility. Like a lot of these value-oriented products, the M32UP will live or die based on pricing. While not available in the United States yet at the time of filming, my understanding is it will be priced around $500 US, similar to what the M32U retails for today. That's about as cheap as 32-inch 4K monitors get these days among products with a refresh rate of at least 144Hz. I'd love to say that we should be seeing more true HDR products around this sort of price with similar specs, but the reality is that we're just not there yet, so the lack of HDR hardware in the M32UP is fine for now. The main competition to this monitor is the LG 32GR93U, which offers very similar performance. It's often available at basically the same price too, though pricing in the US is a bit more variable, fluctuating between $500 and $600 US for the LG. Here in Australia, it's the same price as the M32UP, $900 Aussie, and whether you choose the Gigabyte or LG option, I think you'll be quite happy with the outcome. Based on my testing, the LG monitor is slightly better tuned for response times and motion performance and has higher SDR brightness. The Gigabyte monitor is a bit better calibrated and has a few additional features like a KVM switch and USB-C port. There's no clear winner here, it comes down to the features you desire, and I think both options have a fair price right now. So my advice is to check pricing in your regions for both models and go from there. So anyway, that's it for this review of the Gigabyte M32UP. If you appreciate the testing that we do here at Monitors Unboxed, please consider supporting us via our Patreon page. Links to that is in the description below. It really helps out the channel, helps us to buy monitors and continue advancing our testing and that sort of thing. Also, you gain access to some pretty cool benefits and perks with our Discord community, great place to chat about monitors. We've got monthly live streams, calibrated profiles are available, that sort of thing. So yeah, that does it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.